In agriculture, we actually waste more fertilizer than we get into our plants. That's a bad thing, but there's technology to start maximizing our fertility and your fertility investment. That's what we're talking about in this episode of The Business of Agriculture. Hey, Damian Mason here with a question before we hop into this episode of The Business of Agriculture. If you farm for a living, you employ a lot of amazing technology, from your inputs that you put into the soil to the tractor that you sit in, your combine, and the amazing data that it harvests. But has your soil analytics kept up technologically with everything else in your farming operation? I would venture to say that no, it is not. Sure, you check for your nitrogen, your phosphorus, your potassium, your micronutrients as well. But what about disease pressure? Do you know what diseases and what pests you're going to face next year? No, you don't. But you can now figure that out with Pattern Ag's predictive analytics. Think about it. They can tell you now with testing what the likelihood of facing nasty diseases, things like cyst nematode or sudden death syndrome, what the likelihood of you having this in your field. Then you know how to prepare, how to treat, and where to invest your money. It's using technology to make you bigger yields and therefore make you bigger money. Go to www.pattern.ag to learn more. They are pioneering the way in predictive agronomy. Hey there, welcome to another fantastic episode of The Business of Agriculture. Got a guest for you that's going to talk about technology to maximize your fertility investment. We're not tree-hugging wacko environmentalists, right? We in agriculture think we do the right thing, but we also are beholden to the technology that we have. As my friend Kelly Garrett, or from my Extreme Ag job, always talks about, the holy grail of agriculture in North America is growing corn. You want to grow more corn, by God, pump the nitrogen into it. But let's just talk about nitrogen. Turns out only about 35% of applied nitrogen actually gets into a corn plant. Most people don't know that. Again, environmentalism doesn't mean hugging trees and running around volunteering for some, wacky environmental cause, and it can sometimes mean just doing the right thing technologically. Our guest is going to talk about technology that can maximize fertility investment. Also, we're going to talk about how we can get better about this. There's going to be more environmental regulation. There's going to be more screws putting to us. Ag tends to have a target on its back, A, because we have a pretty big footprint, B, because we don't fight very well, C, because we're completely outnumbered. So what if we can just do the right thing and mitigate this before it even comes to a movement? Clark Bell is with a company called NanoYield. They've been a client of mine, and I said, why don't you come on here and talk about this? Because I think the future, he's got a logo that says the future is nano. What the hell does that mean is going to be my first question. But secondly, is it true that we can do better on the fertility that we're spending money on and getting in the plant? And that's what your company is all about, is let's get you're spending the money on the fertilizer. Now let's actually make it do its job versus let it go into the water table, wash into a stream, leach down the soil profile, evaporate and volatilize up in the environment. So kind of give me the background. By the way, thanks for being on here.
Yeah, Damon, thanks again for having me on. And fantastic to see you again. Last time in Arizona was awesome weather, and it's starting to turn into spring here in Utah, so that's great.
And I think your audience even somewhat liked what I had to say, so hell, who knows?
They did. Yeah. You got plenty of laughs, and you were on brand, as we say, Dave.
CEO, co-founder of NanoYield. Quick background on you and NanoYield, but like I said, the big thing I want to get to here is, it seems to me that this is low-hanging fruit, as my friend, again, Kelly with Extreme Ag talks about, that if you're putting out this product and only about a third of it's actually going to work in the plants, we make our money off of the plants. We make our money off of the crops, whether it's tree fruit or soybeans. So anyway, quick background on you and then the problem you seek to solve.
Yeah, I'm a kid that grew up in the suburbs that farmed on the weekends. My family and I own and operate a 600-acre sod farm here in Salt Lake City, Utah, called Biograss Sod Farms. So that's how I got involved in agriculture. Started working on the farm when I was 9 years old, moving pipe. And as I tell many people, agriculture is a birth defect. It's here on me, and it's what I'm going to do the rest of my life. Absolutely love this industry. About 11 years ago, discovered this opportunity of taking nanoparticles to improve uptake and to maximize yield. We use it to your different fertilizer profiles. We began using it with phosphorus, potassium, zinc, moved into using it on nitrogen. And now fast forward to 2024, we started a company called NanoYield. We previously were called AquaYield. We've done a rebranding just due to our different brands that we have. And we've got a set of what we call nano liquid technology, which is liquid materials that go out at 4 ounces to the acre to improve and maximize uptake when you're using, say, UAN 32, or when you're putting out 1034 as a starter. And we also have our other flagship product, which is called NanoCoat, which is a coating on granular fertilizer to, again, make sure that granular is going to have the best efficiencies on your farm.
So a couple of things. First off, you're the admitted suburbanite kind of agriculture, but also you said we had a 600-acre turf farm. There's people that probably are like, I don't know, in the corn and soybean business back rough. I'm like, well, that doesn't seem like much. 600 acres of sod, that's a hell of an operation.
That's like equivalent to like a 15, 20,000 acre corn grower as you look at the economics.
You're touching the sod, aren't you? Literally, you're doing something to that every day, right?
We're mowing or watering it every single day. Yeah,
and then you 100%. Put certain treatments on it, fertility and all that, and you're trying to get So sod is a very high input per square foot kind of an industry.
It is. And when you look at a lot of the innovation in ag, a lot of those come from guys in T&O, just due to the innovation and how much goes into their crops. They really fall in love more so in agronomy, and then that transfers into broad acre and specialty agriculture.
So coming from the sod thing, is that where you saw you? Tell me again the history. And NanoYield, you rebranded, but you started this company when?
We founded the company in 2014. So in 2013 is when we originally started fusing nanoparticles with liquid phosphorus fertilizer. Essentially, we did a reduction on our first trial ever to the tune of about 40%, and we were able to increase the vigor and growth, and we're able to get sod grown 4.5 months faster due to our technology. And so on that, on that September day in 2013, that's when I came to the realization, I'm not going to be selling sod to muddy boot landscapers. I'm going to be selling fertilizer to Wrangler jean wearing farmers across the world. And here we are now.
Okay, so you started thinking, I'm going to make the jump from being a sod producer to being a producer of a product to make fertilizer make it more utilizable, make it more digestible is really what we're talking about. All right, so you pioneered the technology, or did you buy the technology?
Yep. Nope. We pioneered the technology. So we've got a number of patents we've introduced. I think of the largest form of agriculture, this idea of using nanotechnology. There's other people that are doing it, but I think when people think nano and fertilizer, they certainly think of us, and definitely on the domestic side of things here. Okay.
So what does it look like? You're not a chemist.
No.
You're not a chemist. You don't have a PhD. You don't have. No. You weren't hanging around with some beakers in a lab. How did you then come with this? Did you hire somebody and say, I think here's what we got to do?
Yeah, kind of the foundational scientist that we worked with. He got us to a certain level with it. We then realized we needed to get some heavy guns. We brought in one of our PhDs, Landon Bunderson, to continue to create the nano technology. Him and I then worked tirelessly between 2014 to 2017 to develop what is now our suite of products. The original process was service-based. So we'd show up to a farm, we would take their irrigation water, turn it to be ultra-pure form, and then add nanoparticles and then have a finished product. So we were just blending on farm. Mm-hmm. That, we had a number of struggles, because at that point we were telling people, hey, you're going to reduce your fertilizer by 50, 60%. So farmers loved that. Obviously, fertilizer distributors and co-ops did not.
Right.
And as we would go from one farm to another, we would drive by hundreds of thousands of acres. Mm-hmm. And so came to the concept, we have to have a concentrated form of this nanotechnology in a product form. And that's what launched, our flagship products like Nano Pro and Nano N Plus.
So the idea here is, so I'm a farmer. Everybody, we always say this, but it's important for the non-ag public. The environmental crowd, those farmers are flinging that, doing this, putting products on these fields. I don't know one farmer that looks for a reason to go out and spend more money on inputs if they don't have to. The reason we do this clearly is to get yield, which is how you get paid. More yield, more revenue. So there's not a reluctance to spend less. There's not a reluctance to cut rate, except the reluctance is cutting rate has always been associated with dropping yield. So, so your pitch was, I've got this technology. And like you said, a retailer, a traditional ag retailer is not going to be your business partner because they want to sell volumes of bulk fertilizer, whether it's in liquid or dry form. So I'm sure you made a pitch and they're like, hey, great kid, get the hell out of here. I'm in the business of selling tons of or gallons of liquid or bulk dry fertilizer. So
you
said, I've got to go direct to farm, which is a tough deal.
Yep. Yeah. 2014 to 2017 was a blend of direct to farm and then starting to get up like, little seed dealers, little distributors. About 2019, when we really had good data that showcases that this is more of a yield enhancer and an uptake play, and that it can be utilized with going out with your full program, that's when we had co-ops and retailers start to take notice. And they're even more so doing now, almost 10 years later, as we're in 2024.
Okay. So first off, are you convinced that this will catch on?
Our concept?
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. 100% certainty.
You've got a gatekeeper in that the entirety of the agricultural retail network, whether they be independents, cooperatives, or the big nationals, are not going to be in a big hurry to sell less stuff. And by using your stuff, or that we're going to sell less stuff. So that's a pretty big hurdle.
Yeah. I was in Kansas this past week, met with probably 5 of our distributors and 3 to 5 potential ag retail co-ops. The one thing that I heard from all of them is they have to improve their core programs they have, which we do. And EPA is not allowing for new chemistries to fight the pestilence, the plagues, the funguses, the whatever we're dealing with on broadacre farms. So they need to have additives that can get them there. So we kind of answer both of those. We can make your current programs go from being good to great, and then we can make all the EPA products that you've been using that are, these crop protection products to even have better results. And so I think the better play as to being an ag input additive company like us is there's been trillions of dollars that have been made through Hyperbox to make nitrogen, to have this rail that we could transport, for tons of fertilizer from other countries to here to get to the farm. The better play is to use the existing products that are being proven and used on a farm and to make them even more cutting edge so that they can maximize yield and get more revenue. Farmers, they of course, if they can cut some pennies to enhance the bottom line, that's great. For the most part, they're all revenue-driven decision makers, and they're mavericks that they just want to maximize yield. And we believe that you can unlock yield potential with nanotechnology, and that can be complemented by things like biostimulants, great adjuvants, surfactants that can really make that happen. But I mean, Damian, if I had to only choose 2 things to use on my farm to grow sod, it'd be Roundup and it'd be 4600, right? It'd be nitrogen, right?
Yeah, right.
The third thing would be nanotechnology, but those first 2 things are what I have to use. Those are tried and proven things. And I would say every farmer I talk to would probably agree with that. And so how do we make nitrogen and Roundup work better is the key element. And so many people have been focused on, we're going to displace nitrogen. This biostimulant's going to make it so that you can put out any nitrogen. Nitrogen's not that expensive. Yes, it is. It can be wasteful, but how can we just make nitrogen work better, right?
Yeah, by the way, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. I want to talk more about that. By the way, since you're talking about biologicals and everything else, I want to tell you, dear listeners, about my new sponsor, Redox Bionutrients. I'm wearing their hat if you happen to be tuning in right now. Family business with products for ag and turf that are increasingly applied on broad acres all throughout the U.S. and internationally. You know what? There's a whole bunch of money, and we're going to talk about that. Me and Clark Bill are going to talk about that. A whole bunch of money pouring into ag over the last 5 years. And it's VC money, it's venture money, it's tech money, whatever. But here's the thing. A lot of the products are unproven. Redox has been around for 30 years. Darren Moon started this company 30 years ago in specialty crop, moved into turf, and now more and more on broadacre broadacre agricultural production, making a shift from traditional fertilizers to highly efficient carbon-based technology. Redox has a bunch of products that will provide superior nutrition, abiotic stress defense, root growth, soil health, and efficient nutrient uptake, which is something we're talking about with Clark Bell right here in nutrient uptake. And that's where we're going here in the next few minutes on this episode. So find out more at redoxgrows.com. All right. Clark, I think you just hit on something really big. And I talk about this with my extreme ag guys. Obviously, they're out here trying all kinds of new innovative stuff. We're not going to get away from, and nor do we even think it's plausible or smart to stop using synthetic fertilizers. But you can obviously point out, and I'm an ag person, we have over-applied the stuff.
100%.
I'm a Northeast Indiana farm owner, and I started hearing about the Lake Erie, and I talk about it a lot because I think it's important. Lake Erie started having tremendous algae bloom problems 40, 30 years ago, and they point out to, it's the phosphorus in northern Ohio that you've just been dumping out there on these fields, plus you've already got this livestock industry, obviously manure, very heavy in phosphates. We've been leaching phosphates into Lake Erie, and the thing is, I'm not going to bash on ag, but I'm also going to say we can do better. And it's probably
100%.
smart because first off, it's not just about the environment. It's also about your pocketbook. Why the hell are you spending all this money on stuff if you're not getting use of it? And it's not because farmers wanted to harm Lake Erie. It's because they wanted to not harm their financial position. So they put out stuff. That's where we are. We are over applying stuff. I really believe a rational person in the year 2024, Clark, can't look and say, oh yeah, no, we're not over applying. Bullshit. Yeah. We are over applying nutrients because it's generally been affordable to do so and cost effective. Now, this changed. Our mindset changed a couple of years ago. The supply chain issues bumped up demand or bumped up all kinds of distortions in the marketplace. Fertility, fertilizers, some of them weren't available. And man, people decided, oh, I got to get more judicious. I've got to start being a little bit more spoon feeding out here. And that was a good thing. Did it stick? Did that mindset stick? I got to get more judicious. Is that helping a product like yours? Is that helping people like you that are saying we're going to figure out how to do it?
Yeah, I think when people weren't able to turn on their tap water in Dayton, Ohio because of algae bloom, I think that woke a lot of people up. And when you look at the dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico is the size of Delaware, and a lot of that is due to runoff, and one of those runoffs being fertilizer. It definitely paints a picture that we need to be more mindful about what's happening downstream. I don't think I'm saying to farmers that they need to use less fertilizer. What I'm telling them is that they need to increase their uptake and absorption. That's where the play is. And that's why I told you 100% certainty that NanoYield is going to be on 100 million acres, in the next 5 to 7 years, because this is what we're providing for people. And when you look at other complementary technologies, like I said, like some of these biologicals and cutting edge adjuvants that are coming out, that's the huge opportunity, I believe.
Yeah, I think so too. So we're essentially, what our friends BASF 20 years ago had a commercial 30 years ago. We don't make this, but we make these things better. Yep. That's kind of where I think the play is now.
You got it.
Adjuvants, et cetera, that tank mix stuff that makes the fertility products we have makes them better. So how does it work? Tell me how your stuff works, and then also who's competing with you.
Yeah. So everything we do is on the nanoscale. Nanoscale is a representation of size, right? And so what we do is we have a very small particle that absorbs fertilizer ions. And then when it's essentially absorbed into the leaf cell through what's called endocytosis, which is like the leaf cell, absorbing a disease or pathogen, it just brings it in. Yep. That payload of those ions are dispersed more efficiently into the crop. So that's essentially our 15-minute pitch about how that works. So mode of action is endocytosis, and the native material that we use is a silicate nanoparticle that is a carry and delivery mechanism of fertilizer ions.
How many other companies are out here? And again, there's a boatload of investment. I mean, I talked to companies that they're in algae, using seaweed and algae derivatives to create, and that's more for like to spray on, and it's supposed to be for stress reduction. In other words, to help your plants handle stress better. We got coatings. This is something that we didn't have years ago. Fertilizer treatments. Like, why the hell are we treating fertilizer? And that's kind of where I asked you before we hit record to describe your stuff in one sentence, and you said it was
Maximizing yield. Yeah. Yeah. Maximizing yield. Right.
A fertilizer what do you call it? Amendment. A fertilizer. It's a fertility amendment.
Additive. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fertility additive.
Yeah.
Other companies doing what you do?
Yeah. On the nano scale, there's two or three smaller people, probably on the West Coast, that are making some claims about nano. Their claims are pretty broad and unbelievable for people. The way that you can really prove that your technology works is by your data sets, right? And so, you've got to have that university and third-party validation, which, over 10 years, we've been able to really build up that, which is great. Secondly, the other people I think that we kind of get, put into the same place as is like what you said, the biologicals. There's been tens of billions of dollars invested into this area, from it being a seed treatment that's going to make it so that you have to use any water or nitrogen to, hey, we put out this biological and then you don't have to put out any nitrogen. Some of those claims are tough. And I mean, even to the point, Damian, I met with a co-op in Kansas today. We walked in and he said, if you guys are here to talk to me about biological, and then he just pointed to the door. Like, they are just so inundated and done with this, right? So luckily I was able to say, we're not. We're here to talk about nano. And he's like, well, what the hell is nano? And so, we have got a good story that's unique and different. But anyway, yeah. That's kind of the scope of things.
1,200 companies that are now in the biological space. And I continue to compare it to, I'm a big fan of the Indianapolis 500. The Indianapolis 500 was begun in the year 1911, and the reason Carl Fisher tried to go on a trip to Ohio and his car broke down, and he said he got together with some of his other rich industrialists and said, why the hell can't we build a better car? There was 100 manufacturers of automobiles in the state of Indiana in 1911. Nobody knows that. They were everywhere. There were car manufacturers in every state. People were trying to make cars. They said, but nobody's making a good one. So let's put out a whole big cash purse. Whoever can drive 500 miles in the fastest time gets this huge purse of money.
Yeah.
That's how the 500 was started. By the way, nobody knows there was that many car manufacturers. They were everywhere. I think it's 1911 on biologicals and agriculture. I don't know if there's going to be an Indy 500 to sort them out, but I'm telling you what, they're everywhere.
They are. Well, and the tough thing that I see with the biological companies with nutrition is that you have this sales cycle that is just extremely slow. I put out the biological, and for me to prove it, I've got to see it at the end by increase of yield, increase of quality, whatever that's going to be. What's been beneficial for us is people can see the difference with us specifically on crop protection, that, hey, this works in 5 to 7 days. And farmers need to see it to believe it. And then that becomes kind of a gateway for us into the nutrition side. And I think given just the scope of how many biostimulant companies there are, it's confusing. And also farmers, they just don't have the time to wait and to set out 3 different trials on their fields to see which biostimulant is going to work, right? And so they have to rely on the distributor and the co-op to bring them the best technology.
So you're in Kansas, you met with a cooperative, and he said, if you're here another one of these biological companies, and he pointed to the door, and you said,
pointed to the door.
And then what'd you tell him? Because
we told him,
his bullshit meter still went up, Clark. I mean, let's face it, you're a businessman, I'm a businessman. You get a lot of pitches. It's fine. So what'd you tell him? Because then he's going to say, what's that? How does this work, and how do I make money on it, is what his question was.
You got it. We then showcased to him, and we said, hey, we know that you're a dealer with Beck's hybrids. Yep. We have some data that's been very convincing in the PFR program that we'd like to share with you about NanoPro, Nano and Plus, and Nano CS. So we shared that with him. We're able to showcase that we have anywhere from a 3 to 15 to 1 ROI, which he was impressed by, and just kind of showcase how we're unique and different. And that, again, we are a way that he can bring more revenue to his growers, and then we can be a profit center for him by adding this into all the proven things that he does.
Okay, so how he goes about using it as an agricultural retailer cooperative is he takes a jug of your stuff or a shuttle of your stuff, and then he coats, and then he in his fertilizer treatment facility, which he probably has, he dabbles this stuff onto fertilizer that's going into a bulk trailer to go out to a farm, and so it's just a coating on dry fertilizer.
Yep. So we have nanoliquid, that's going to be added with your tank mixes. Like as mentioned, if you're putting out, if you're putting out 2,4-D and Roundup, you add us at 4 ounces to the acre, and it's going to increase the uptake of those metabolites by 20 to 30%.
So wait, you just mentioned those are herbicides. So you're saying you have stuff that makes herbicide more efficient, and you have stuff that makes fertility more efficient. Is that true?
Yep, you got it. And then if they're also putting out nitrogen at the same time with like a pre-emergent, they could then put out like our NanoYield Plus, and that's going to increase the uptake of, say, their UAN 32. On the dry side, on the coating, that's when we go in and we are in a coating that's put into that dry facility to enhance and make it so that we can maximize the uptake of the dry fertility. So that's called NanoCoat.
All right, so it's a coating on dry fertilizer, or it's a tank mix, and it can be a tank mix for fertility that goes out as a foliar applied treatment. But also, you have a product that goes in with, you said 2,4-D and Roundup, for instance, was herbicides, and it actually and why does herbicide need your stuff? They've already got surfactants that make it stickier. We've already gotten to where we're very low use rates. I wouldn't think that there's a need for something to go in and tank mix with herbicide. Yeah.
Generally, they want to see an increase of absorption, and they want to see an increase of time of kill. And so we've been able to prove, we can essentially what all of our distributors say is it just smokes the weeds. It just smokes.
So by the time the sprayer is pulling out onto the road, the first pass they made over on the other side of the field, it's already dead, and the weeds are the weeds are already like starting to shrivel.
And there's white smoke coming up from the plant. 100%, Damian.
I think you might be a little overzealous on that, but I like it anyway.
But generally they can see about a 3 to 5 day difference about how much faster we're controlling the specific target.
All right, I want to talk about environmentalism, and I want to talk about regulation, because this is a big thing. And also, I want to talk about marketplace. You tell me first. You want to talk about marketplace, or you want to talk about regulation? Which one first?
Let's do regulatory.
All right, regulatory.
That's my favorite topic.
Because it's something that we must admit, and we'll harken back to it. Before I hit on this, and you're going to tell me, we're going to talk about everything from the Lake Erie experience to today, what's happening with the Farm Bill, because I think there's going to be a lot more heat on us, agricultural producers, because of this. By the way, speaking of heat on you, this is going to be a tough year, dear listener. If you are in agriculture, you already heard the predictions. We're going to have a down farm revenue year. 21, 22, 23 were record farm income years. Now we're going to get back to what's more historically normal, which means you got to think about your bottom line. What if you could get paid for practices you're already doing on your farm? You can do this with our friends at Truterra. Truterra is one of my sponsors. They're focused on supporting farmers at every stage of your sustainability journey for your improved agronomic and economic outcomes. Maybe you just have to start doing strip till, reduce tillage, use some cover crops. Maybe you're already doing some of those things. You know what? You can get paid for them. Truterra has a program. Go to TruterraAg.com, TruterraAg.com. They are a subsidiary of Land O'Lakes, have been around this ag game for a long, long time. Look at TruterraAg.com and see if maybe you can get paid. It's another way to diversify revenue on your farming operation. I just work for you. A year like this, all the revenue you can whittle out of your farm is going to help you.
100%.
Environmental regulation, Clark. I think it's coming. I think that future farm bills are going to continue to ramp up environmental pressure on us. Nitrogen stabilizers, for instance, like I just talked about Truterra. If you're reducing nitrogen through using stabilizers, how you apply variable rate application, split applications, let's face it, going out in the spring like we used to, or even in the fall, and just flinging out, pounds and pounds or gallons and gallons of nitrogen, it's wasteful. It doesn't do us any good. It was easy, but it's not the right thing to do. I don't find some of the regulation threat to be problematic. If you're a progressive-minded producer, you're probably already doing the things that are going to be required. What's your read?
Yeah, the three biggest threats that I had in the early days of this company was, one, the EPA was going to shut us down. 2, a large conglomerate was going to shut us down because they were threatened by us. Or 3, that distributors would never accept us and our message and our technology.
Right.
So the distributor acceptance we've got, we're now, we're selling our nanoparticles as branded ingredients that go into a lot of the chemical manufacturers. We've got some strong relationships, and that'll come out, that's slow, but that'll come out and manifest in the next 2 or 3 years. And then the third one, we've won the Next Gen Fertilizer Innovation Challenge with the EPA and the USDA, and also received a grant through the Fertilizer Protection Enhancement Program. Okay. And so what I'm seeing from a regulatory side of things is, they do want to see innovation. They want to make sure that it's done smart and that it's a proven technology. And 2, they do have grants for people that can protect our fertilizer, that we don't have to worry about that Russia, Ukraine, and China is going to get that here. They want that to be grown on American soils and get to our farmers in a better fashion. Right. And so we answer all of those. The cost to make a crop protection molecule is substantial. We're talking tens, if not $20 million just to get it on market. And with the amount of testing that you have to go through, all that, and then just the regular paperwork, regulatory paperwork is just astonishing. And so that's why I heard from many of these co-ops and retailers this last week where I'm not going to get more improved crop protection products. The EPA is not allowing that. I need to have some things that are going to enhance when I put out dicamba, that it's going to work in the fashion that it needs to. And that's why I think there's a fit for companies like NanoYield moving forward.
Yeah. So getting away from your company specific, big picture on ag, the dicamba thing, man, that's been a hot potato for several years. And that stuff, hey, man, it's some harsh stuff. Again, I can put on my ag hat. I can put on my suburban hat. I can put on my guy who lives in a house next to a field in the country hat. And it's some wicked stuff. So I don't know that we're justified. I mean, if the environmental angle is we want to shut down livestock production because the United Nations says that it's bad for climate catastrophe, I call bullshit on that. But when there's stepped up scrutiny on dicamba, I'm not sure that I'm opposing that, because there's some pretty, I mean, we can make some pretty smart observations and connect a couple of dots, you and I, Clark, and say that. So where do we go?
Yeah, I think, one, we need to be mindful about what we're putting out. And the biggest issue, I think, with dicamba was the drifting, that they were spraying it in a wheat or a cornfield, and that drift then went, just
it volatilizes, yes.
Right, and butchered, a peach or a cherry orchard, right, which is a higher value crop, right? Yeah. And so that's where the first thing was. So I think, I'm not saying that farmers are not aware of their circumstances, but maybe we have not educated them as well about how to use the things that they're doing and what the ramifications are there. I would argue all farmers, I've met them in India, I've met them in Spain, I've met them in Mexico, US, they're all environmental stewards, every single one of them. They want to do what's right for their land. But they maybe haven't been as well informed about what they're putting out and the ramifications, right? So yeah, I think that's the first thing, is we got to educate better. The second one is, again, going back to what I've said, we've got to improve the proven technologies even more so. And that, I believe, is going to be done by 3 things: nanotechnology, biostimulants, and artificial intelligence. Yeah. Artificial intelligence being drone applications, so that we're spraying, instead of spraying an entire field, we're just going to spray exactly where we need to spray. Instead of putting an entire acre of zinc on a cornfield, we're just going to put zinc on the zinc deficient corn, right? Yeah. That's the huge opportunity. And that's where we need regulatory to push us moving forward.
Well, the truth is, I think right now we're ahead of regulatory on that. We talk about variable application. My guys that are extreme ag guys, they're talking about we're planting at variable rates, we're applying fertility at variable rates. And then, like you said, I think that some of these biological companies that are still unproven, the ones that sort through, when we separate the wheat from the chaff, I think, Clark, it's going to be, man, this product, what we've discovered is in conjunction with this, and this, whether it's something like yours and then a biological and then a conventional. It's kind of like the convergence There's going to be this new thing. There's going to be this not quite exactly new thing paired with this thing we've been doing for the last 50 years, but we're doing it better. And I think that's where it all comes together. And I don't want there to be a lot of regulation that forces it. I want it to be that we do it on our own. And I was very enthused or encouraged a couple of years ago when fertilizer prices got high and tight, supplies got tight, that we saw innovation. And this whole thing, mother of invention and all that, necessity.
100%. Yep.
The customers are changing. We're gonna have some consolidation. A down farm economy generally creates more consolidation. That's going to happen. USDA programs, let's face it, have a lot of times, financial programs have a lot of times fostered along the bottom 20% that probably shouldn't have been in the business anyhow. What do you see happening for you, but also just big picture? What's, ag retail? You talk about going to ag retail. If I'm an ag retailer, I'm going to feel the footsteps of this 20,000 acre farming operation doesn't really need me. What do you think? Consolidation, next 5 years, what does it do? What's it look like from your perspective?
Yeah, I'm an opportunist. I think with the consolidation, there brings with it maybe a level of not the service that a farmer is being needed. And so many of the people that we work with are the independent retailer and distributor, and those are the ones that are cleaning house right now, that they're able to service 50 to 100,000 acres better than maybe the huge co-op or huge ag retailer can, because they can be more nimble and agile. With they're hungrier, and then secondly, they don't have to go through some of their own regulatory work where they have to have a product proven. They can start working with a latest and greatest biostimulant that's only been in the market for a year, and then they bring that to their farmer. Whereas maybe that co-op is going to take 3 to 5 years before they'll even release that biostimulant, because they got to make sure it's proven. So I think there's actually more opportunities in this game for innovative ag tech companies.
Is a reduction in ag income at the farm level going to be the death knell for all of this new technology, be it yours or the biologicals or the seed treatments? I mean, all these kind of things. Does that cause a pullback on adoption because it's not quite there? A lot of farmers make really good decisions. A lot of farmers also do what they've been doing forever, and this is not a time to try something new, or they do what their neighbor does. What do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think the earliest point of adoption for an ag input company is the adoption that they get from capital to launch their idea. When we look at that, we were funding billions of dollars into innovative ag input companies over the past 5 years. And then last year, I won an Ag Funder News, and I just looked at the amount of funding from Q4 and Q1 we've done. We're at like $80 million is where we're at right now. And that's over the whole globe, right? And this is them taking kind of abstract ideas that are different from what we're doing, right? Like, I mean, one of them is this company in France is taking human urine.
But give me a historical, what you just said, where the number that Ag Funder News tells you that the money that's pouring in for ag innovation now versus 1 or 2 years ago is what?
Yeah. So agfunder.com is like the best place you can learn about all the funding that's going into ag tech, right?
I like it.
As I started at this company, it just became a place that I was just always seeing what everybody else is doing. And between 2017 to 2022, there was just an insane amount of venture capital and private equity money that went into this space, right? Billions of dollars. One of the things about being a venture-backed company is generally you just have to grow the top line. You don't have to worry about being profitable. And so when you're not profitable, you run out of money, you get more investors, fund it, and you keep going. And the idea is you eventually break to profitability or cash flow, and then it works out, or you get bought by a company.
Yeah, by the way, real quickly, because I like the entrepreneurial talk. For the person that loves to listen to my show, but they're like, hey, wait, you just went over my head. When he talks about top line, the point is what has historically, and really this historic is like in the last 10 to 15 years, because it's kind of the tech model.
You
is
got it.
let's just grow revenue, grow revenue, grow revenue. And by God, they'll throw money at marketing and promotion. And all of a sudden you'd be like Super Bowl ads. You're like, what the hell are you doing? You don't even have, you're not even profitable. It's all about get known and get sales and get revenue.
You got it.
Frankly, Amazon was like that. Tesla was like that. Tesla was only profitable in like 2 of its first 48 quarters. Tesla was profitable 2 or 3 of its first 48 quarters of filing their business reports, whatever. But it didn't matter because it was all, like you said, top line growth. And that came to ag. But that was never the deal. That didn't come to ag in the old days. That came to ag, like you said, in the last 6 or 10 years. That mindset and that money. The money and the mindset. Was.
Yep. And given the slow sales cycle, the seasonality, the issues that we face in agriculture, you need to have patient investors, right? Venture capital generally expects a full return on their investment within 5 to 7 years, right? Mm-hmm. And so I look at NanoYield, we're now in our 10th year. And at the end of last year, we're around 10.2 million acres in our complete lifespan. It's a slow cycle, right? And growing 30 to 70% year over year, that generally is looked at, wow, that's amazing growth. Yep. But the venture-backed companies, they need to be doing 100 to 200%. So that's given why I think, like what you said, I think we're going to see a lot of innovation that's been put into the marketplace that these companies are going to they're going to unfortunately have to shut their doors because they're not profitable and there's not going to be capital that pulls into them.
Yeah. And you're not venture backed.
We are private equity backed.
Yeah, you have investors, but it's not the same as venture capital where they're expecting 100 to 200% growth rates. And that takes a little pressure off. You still got investors to answer to. You 100%. Being one of your own investors, presumably.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
You lay awake at night sometimes busting your own balls about this and say, you need to grow more.
100%. Yeah, there's many 4 to 5 hour nights because we're not executing. And I've made some statements and promises to our investors, and I want to see those through, Damian. But that's the cross I bear, right? And
I like the entrepreneurial side of it. I've been on my own for 30 years, and it's not quite the same thing as you do. But the point is, I always say is, while what I do isn't the same as what you do, or is the same as what Elon Musk does, there's some of the same mindset and there's some of the same stresses. It's not like having a normal job. Get me out of here. The production, and I talked about consolidation. I talked about where the ag is. I'm convinced we're going to use more disparate products as we already are. We're just the old usual of, Inserv was the first nitrogen stabilizer back like in the 70s, I want to say, early 80s. Yeah. And it became, why do I need this? Well, because you're putting out anhydrous and a third of it goes up in the air about as soon as the tank goes through the field. Yeah. So where we're going, I think, is the right thing. Does it excite you that we're doing this? What does excite you? Not your company, just the industry. What excites you about the? So take off the NanoYield hat, put on the president of Biograss Sod Farms hat. What excites me is the way that I can improve my soils that I wasn't able to do before with biostimulants, with algae, and with better technology, right? The thing that also excites me is instead of having to do a tractor-pulled tank sprayer on 600 acres, which takes 7 days to cover everything, I can now get a drone and it can do 100 acres in a day. Yeah. And all I have to do is just have somebody fill up the drone, and also they can tell when that part of the field needs more nitrogen and that part needs to be sprayed. That is game changer stuff. Yeah. And so, I think about these movies where we saw like drones that are spraying stuff or tractors that were being managed by a robot and there's no one in there. Like that is here. And that is here to stay. And it's here. It's still not on the acres. I had a conversation with the Fint people.
It does take time.
I said, I'm living in Phoenix, Arizona during the winter. I'm over in Scottsdale, and a car with no driver hauling somebody, it's called Waymo, passes me on a highway. They're going 50 or 70 miles an hour.
Waymo experience.
I said, I thought I thought by now I was supposed to drive through Nebraska and look out and see driverless tractors doing every field. Hell, I ain't seen one.
Yep.
Yet in a metropolitan area of 4.5 million, I've got a Waymo car with a little whirligig on the top of it, driving itself, hauling somebody. So it's there, but it's not there. And that's where I wonder if we've hit a little speed bump, because I thought by 2024, we're going to have this.
Yeah, I think the issues are adoption, because the economics are expensive. You know, it's just like Tesla, when they came out with Model 3, everyone then had a Tesla because it's a $40,000 car.
Yep. Right.
This is what we have to bring to the farm as well. Secondly, it has to be easy to implement from a tech stack. A farmer, you know, I look at my business partner, John Heslop. He's 66 years old. He can run our pivot system from his phone, click a button, it's watering, right? It needs to be that simple that we can do that with a drone. I'm not close enough to that industry that I know if it is that simple, but I don't think it is, right?
Yeah, you're right.
So
yeah, and that's
those two
generally, I mean, it's a technology thing, and it's probably a couple of years away. It's not quite fast enough in some regards, but yeah, I agree with all of you. I think we're gonna leave it there. What's your last sentence without being a commercial? What do you got?
Again, my thing that I want to share as somebody that's from the fraternity of agriculture is we have trillions of dollars that have developed how we manufacture fertilizer and crop protection. We then have billions of dollars that have been invested into the co-op and the ag retail system. We have got to utilize that infrastructure to continue to grow the food and the fiber to be able to just continue to thrive as a nation. And the way that we can even maximize that potential even more so is with agriculture, agriculture nanotechnology, agriculture biostimulants, and artificial intelligence. That's the opportunity. Hopefully there's an entrepreneur on here that hears this from me and wakes up out of bed and says, I'm going to go do this. It is a huge opportunity. The second thing I would say is, you know, at Commodity Classic, Damian, how many 40-year-olds did you see there like me, right? Like, we need more youth in this industry that is bringing these technologies.
Wait, you're calling 40 youth? You're calling 40 youth?
People think I'm a whippersnapper. So yeah, I don't think I'm youthful. My back didn't feel that way. But that's where I think we can really tie the new innovation, is bringing that to the farm gate with that youth. And that's what I'm excited about.
Yeah, there's definitely the I frankly think that production agriculture is pretty damn good at its adoption rate, given that most operators of agricultural entities are older than me. And I know that there's always the struggle of, adoption of technology as you get older. His name is Clark Bell, CEO, co-founder of NanoYield, Utah-based company, nanotechnology. If you want to learn more, where do they go?
Go to nano-yield.com. You can view hundreds of trials, learn about all our technology, our YouTubes. You know, we've got like 150 grower testimonials. Please check it out. And most likely we have a dealer or distributor right in your backyard that can get your technology to try.
Awesome. So if you're listening to this, you did miss out. He's got a good backdrop. Among all the people I've had on my air, he's got a good backdrop. He's got a overblown mimic of an American Express car, but it says American Dream, make your own luck. And it's got his name, and it's got hustling since 1983, and it expires in June of 2090. Presumably he thinks he's okay if he dies by then. Apparently he'll be he'll be more than 100 years old anyway.
Yeah.
And on his other shoulder, over his left shoulder, he's got his shelf with a bunch of stuff, including the little Martian from Looney Tunes. If you were of a certain age, what's his first name?
Marvin.
The Martian. Huh?
Yeah, he's my favorite. Yeah, Marvin the Martian.
Marvin the Martian, one of my favorite cartoon characters of all time. Anyway, until next time, thanks for being here. Share this with somebody that can benefit from it. Remember, we're not just an audio podcast. If you listen, that's great. We appreciate it. Share it if you will. And also, you can check out the video of this show, and you can see the Marvin the Martian and his American Dream card that Clark has over his shoulder. You can see that on my YouTube channel, which is the Damian Mason channel. Just go to YouTube and type in Damian Mason. Hit subscribe. It doesn't cost you nothing. You can also watch my show on Acres TV, the digital platform that the Hefty brothers started. I was in their booth at Commodity Classic, in fact, saying hi to people. So check it out. Thanks for being here. 340, I think, episodes now, and more to come.
Wow.
Remember also, if you want to check out Truterra and Redox, my sponsors, and then Pattern Ag, of course, for soil analytics. Thanks for being here. Till next time, Clark, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Damian, for having me.
You bet. This is another great show. I'm Damian Mason, and this is the Business of Agriculture. Well, that concludes another fantastic episode of the Business of Agriculture. This episode was brought to you by Pattern Ag. You know, everybody in agriculture understands the importance of soil health. We also keep an eye on our soil better than we ever did through advanced soil testing. But what if there was a company that provided predictive analytics, not just checking out nutrients and all the elements that are in there, but also could tell you the degree of risk you face with disease and pest pressure? That's right, Pattern Ag can do that. They actually can tell you, hey, you're going to have a real issue here. You can preemptively, proactively treat for corn rootworm or cyst nematode or sudden death syndrome before the problem actually starts costing you yield. Go to pattern.ag, that's www.pattern.ag, to find the nearest rep that can help you start doing better for your soil.